on. So you should be good. When
So
you
it's,
join.
oh, I'm on, but and they can see me, right?
So anything you say can be heard too.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
Unless you want me to mute you till everybody's there.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Let me get my paperwork.
All right, what do you need, Abigail?
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Boy, that storm was not predicted.
I'm out at Nassau, and I'm telling you, we got a lot of rain out here.
Yeah, no, it was teeming here in town too, and I just got through washing the car.
That's when it always happens.
Yeah, yeah. How's your wife doing?
She's about the same. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, no. I've been thinking about you guys, so
She struggles, yeah.
yeah.
It's life.
It looks like it might be clearing up a little bit here now. So
You're on Market Street, right?
yeah, right across from your old digs.
Yeah, I saw your address. I think I was 319. And
Right, you were in Barbara Bear's old house. Barbara Bear lives across the street.
Oh, okay.
She said she met you, and you're right across. She lives right next door to where Edna Short used to live.
Yeah, we were good friends with the Shorts. I knew
Edna Short.
Her mother. Her mother gave me
Yeah.
coffee. Oh, Mom said, "You don't give these kids coffee." That was Edna Short's mother. You know.
Right.
She was a great.
I told you the story that her niece told me the story. Yeah.
So
I think I told you the story that her
does
niece
Edna Short's
Adele
relatives
told me the
still own
story
it?
about you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Does Edna Short's relatives still own the property?
Yeah, her two nieces, Ann Tomlin and Ann Allen and Adele Tomlin, and yeah, they inherited it. So.
Oh, okay.
And she told me the story about how you found a rock, or you refinished a rocker or something that's still in the family.
Possible.
You got it through the.
Right now, I'm redoing a barn. I'm looking at it across the edge of the farm here. I have my grandfather's barn moved from his land over to my land, and I'm restoring it. It's about an 1890s barn, not a large one, but they were going to crush it, and I couldn't see them crushing my grandfather's barn. And I bought a part of his farm and then included it with mine. And so it wasn't a long move. It was only about 200 feet. So all we had to move it.
Okay. Now you said this was out in Nassau?
Yeah, you know, you go over the bridge, the Nassau Bridge. The first road on the right is Old Mill Road. Well, you make a right there on Old Mill Road, and I am after the first house on the right. It's Landon Road. My father named it after.
So you're down like near where the Cordries live?
Where?
Yeah, down near where the Cordries live down there. Do you know the Cordries?
Don't know them.
Okay.
So it's right after the first house on the right, and then it's a road there, Landon Road, and we own most of the property around the area. We butt up to Nassau Orchard Market, you know, the old market building, but it's not in operation. So their property butts up against my property here. And I've had it since 1985.
That's Halsey Knapp's. Yeah.
Huh?
Hi, everybody.
The old place is the old the orchard.
Hi, Brian.
Yes. Hey, Brian. Hey, Phil.
Hi.
Hey, Joe.
Greetings. Finishing dessert.
Hey guys, I wish we were together.
Me too.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It has been.
Where's Barbara?
Hello.
Oh, there she is. Okay.
There's Barbara.
There's two of her.
Two of me. Hi. Oh, what are you eating, Joe?
Yes, dessert.
Dessert. I couldn't see that. Okay.
Frozen Italian ice.
Oh, wow. Where's ours?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Best trick I learned, grapefruit spoons. Little teeth on the grapefruit spoons.
Oh, yes.
Works great. Frozen ice.
We'll be over.
See, who are we missing? Let me see. Let me just check here.
You
Is
got Robin?
on?
Hi, I just sent the link to Randy.
Oh, didn't he have it?
I think, well, he sent an email asking if we were using the link from the 4th, so I forwarded in this one. So hopefully.
Okay, the one, okay. Oh, I should have reached out to him. I didn't realize that. Okay,
How about
Hello,
Robin
everybody.
too?
thank you. So, and Robin is Robin here? Is Robin?
I don't see,
No.
I don't
See
see
him.
Robin on here.
There's a,
Barbara, your name is under George.
my name is?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, on my screen, my name's my name. And actually,
Oh, yeah, my name says Barbara Warnell.
Yeah, so two of you.
wow.
Well,
You don't look like Barbara Warnell.
Now, George, you've got my name, George.
how we do that?
I have no idea.
No clue.
Oh, I clicked on the link you sent.
There you go.
Well,
Now
Hey, George.
now you're
Now you're
George.
George.
what?
George came back. Yes.
Hey, Randy. Randy, can you hear us? Looks like your mic
Got
is
the mute.
muted. You have to unmic. Very good.
Unmute the mic.
Do you want to,
Greetings.
greeting, Randy. Do you want to add your video so we can, oh, there you are. No, you're not. That's Brian. Okay. Randy, you can, ah,
There's
very good.
Randy.
There's Randy. Here we go.
Randy, very good. We're still missing, but Janelle, I think Robin's using Janelle's site. Oh, there you are. Hi, Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Yeah, I think Janelle was just on a planning commission call, so she should be here in a second, I hope.
Okay, and she's here just to what, administer the Zoom meeting?
Is she going to talk about 5G? I don't know.
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't know either.
Tom, Wes, and I will be talking about 5G, and I'm also here to help administrate Zoom.
Very good, Janelle. That's
Hello, Janelle.
very important. Okay, I've got 2 o'clock. As soon as we see Robin return, and we'll get started. Nice to have you here, Randy. Is that your office we're looking at?
This is my office in Nassau, yes, not my
Oh,
in-town office. I have too many offices these days, is the problem.
yeah, you don't know where what is. Okay. All right. Okay, let's see. Find one more paper here, and we'll go ahead and start as soon as I see Robin's returned. And Jackie had a prearranged trip scheduled today, so she's going to do the minutes for next month from the recording. And I guess we should wait for Robin or not?
How do you do this? You let the applicants in as their application is being?
No, I believe they can join anytime. And if the public wants to observe this whole meeting, they can do that as well. So since,
Yeah, there's 20 people.
Oh.
There's 11 panelists on this and 9 attendees.
Oh,
okay. So, yeah, it's a public meeting. So that's how they become.
oh, okay. Yeah, I've
But
turned my participants.
But Barbara, it could be that, I don't know if the attendees can if we can hear them or see them, unless Janelle, maybe as the administrator, unmutes them and.
Right. I think there's that question or comment bar down at the bottom.
So typically when the applicant comes in, I'll unmute them so they can talk. And then if members of the public have questions, if they use the chat button, then we can make sure we can read those comments as they come through.
Right. Okay. I've got 2 minutes after 2. Has Robin returned?
It was back and forth. He's gone again.
He's
Tell him
gone
to sit still.
I guess we should wait for him. Another couple of minutes.
Probably a good idea.
Randy, I'm in Nassau too.
Oh.
Oh, you're actually down there. Gotcha.
Where's your dog?
Okay, did you see that chat, Janelle? One of the applicants is trying to join. Janelle, did you see that?
I don't see Janelle Cornwell.
Up on the top, just a little black box.
There's a black box on the lower right corner of my screen.
Okay, well, everybody doesn't, she's not required to video,
Oh, okay.
so she's not. And, okay.
Sorry, I'm trying to multitask, so
That's okay. That's all right.
not trying to be unsocial.
Okay, all right. Do we know what the situation is with Robin, if he's joining us or if there's an issue?
He's on his way.
Okay, all right. All right, well, I'll just wait another minute or two. And I'm going to do an official welcoming for Randy, who's now, Mayor and Council voted to appoint him to this empty spot on the commission after Larry left. So I'll
It's
do
always
that.
my luck to get an empty spot.
It's always, oh, that's a luck. That is luck. That is luck. It is luck. Okay. Well, I could go ahead maybe just with the minutes part and the introductions. Is that okay?
Oh,
there's
here we
Robin.
go. He's back.
All right, he's back.
Track him
Okay.
down.
All right. Robin, are we all set to start?
You're the chairperson.
Okay. All right. Well, I was waiting for you. I didn't want to do this without you. All right. So officially, we're bringing this meeting to order. This is the July. Actually, this is not July.
August.
Yeah, it says
11th.
my sheet says July 7th. Anyway. Okay. All right, I just have the wrong date on mine. All right, let me just switch papers here. Okay. So welcome everyone to the
The weather delayed meeting.
Yes, a weather delay. Welcome to everyone to the H Park Zoom meeting on Tuesday, August the 11th at 2 o'clock. This meeting was rescheduled from last Tuesday, August 4th at 10 a.m. because of the storm and that morning, which caused electric and internet interruptions. So we are now reconvened. Announcements are that we have 2 new commissioners. We had reappointment of Phil Franz, whose term was up, and because Larry resigned last month, and we did. Phil decided to stay on, and Larry decided to move on. So last month we thanked Larry very much for his contributions and service, and this month we welcome our new commissioner, Randy Burton. Phil and Randy were both. Well, Phil was reappointed and Randy was appointed from Mayor and Council at the July meeting, which is the official format, each for a 3-year term. So I'm officially, again, welcoming Randy. And I'm just going to ask each of the commissioners to introduce themselves and maybe just if they want to make a brief comment on what drew them to getting involved in this wonderful, important commission and its mission. And so I'll just start with you, Bill.
Okay, great. Randy and Philip, welcome aboard. Philip, again, looking forward to working with you 3, 4, 5, 6 more years, I hope. Randy, we know one another from stopping each other on the street and talking for an hour and a half. I know your talents, I know your passion, and I share the same. I'm looking forward to being on the team with you. You've got a lot to offer to us. Congratulations for acceptance.
Michael, you want to introduce yourself and share why you're passionately involved?
Or, well, I'm Michael Wider, and I've been coming here to Lewis for the last 30 years or so, and basically have lived here pretty much full time for the last 20. It's just always had a special place in my heart. historic preservation has been something very, very important to me. I'm originally from upstate New York. And at a very, very early age, I saw an old farm across the street from me. It was actually one of the oldest farmsteads in that particular part of the state, sold off and actually used as a test case for a volunteer fire department. And at 15 years of age, it just sort of ripped at my heart and soul. And I've followed things. I've been a member of the National Trust for years, and I've been involved in cultural programs at the U.S. Department of State for 30 years. And I'm very, very honored to be on this commission. And I think I've made some very, very good friends through my monthly contact with you all. And Randy, we're looking very, very much looking forward to working with you as well. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Michael. Bill, would you like to?
Sure. I'm an architect, and I've been involved in historic preservation probably starting about 30 years ago. The first project was the restoration of a Greek revival church in Yorktown, New York. And so part of my architectural practice was historic preservation, and most of the time it involved churches. But when moving here 10 years ago, I used to attend the this commission just as a just for fun. I never had anything before the commission, and I would just sit in the audience and enjoy watching and hearing and listening, and so it keeps my finger in the pie. Right now I am a retired architect. I no longer have a license in Delaware, or New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut, or sometimes in Louisiana. So I'm glad to be here and be a part of this.
Thank you. George?
Hey, hey, Randy, good to see you. George Tomlinson. My explanation is I love Lewis, I love historic homes, and obviously I love real estate.
Thank you, George. Joe?
Joe Hockner. I've moved here at the turn of the century, 1999. It's a joke I've used before. I've actually been appointed to this committee by the Lewis Planning Commission. I do have a little bit of background in historic, but not too much. I'm actually humbled by my my cohorts here, and I'm more attuned to the current construction, mechanical aspects, structures. So I should sit back more and let the experts speak, and I'll just review plans and make some comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. My background is, in my working life, I am an interior space planner and designer, primarily commercial work. But my reason for being here is I'm just passionate about historic preservation and making sure buildings are able to tell an accurate story of their history and their contribution to a particular location, in this case, Lewis. Also, I was involved in the original formation of what was HPC to preserve and protect and guide people through the preservation process in formulating the guidelines and et cetera, et cetera. I've gone to a lot of preservation workshops and all of that, and I just find it all just fascinating. And Randy, would you like to tell us why you are so excited to be here?
Well,
don't hold back.
I'm Randy Burton, as you all know, and you know, having that last name of Burton most of my life has been a blessing and a curse on a regular basis, because you know, my family has been a part of the history of Lewis going back almost 11 generations when you talk about my boys. I've been a builder and a frustrated architect. for the last 34 years, making my way primarily in Lewis and in the Pines, Henlopen Acres, and North Shores. I think the way that I found myself to this commission is because I tend to shoot my mouth off sometimes when maybe I should keep it closed. But I've been very passionate about historic preservation. I've owned 2 beautiful historic homes in Lewis over the course of my life. And as I said a couple of years ago, when there were reconsiderations being done for how to strengthen or change the dealing with the front facades of people or of houses, interesting people. You know, I think that historically, when you look at Lewis, preservation is something that in the 80s, when it really kicked up, was something that was done by passion. And we've tried to figure out how to legislate that passion into the desire to preserve, right? So for my feeling always was over the last 10 years that we've gotten a different group of people that have chosen to come and relocate to Lewis. And that group of people, although many of them are attracted to the historic nature of Lewis, they may not understand what it means to try to preserve that historic nature of the town and the buildings and what's important in that. So, you know, Barbara is well aware of that, as have other people from the previous CARC and HPC. And, you know, 2 years ago, I guess it was, my name was floated and Ted called me to ask me to join HPC then, and to preserve his political career. I guess that was 3 years ago. Nobody knew that I was the contract purchaser of the infamous 4th Street Forest, what's now known as Mariner's Retreat, where I'm trying to put my passion forward by building homes in there that attempt on the front side on Verdon Way, which is an old family name that we changed that street to, you know, to try and do in that property what was done. And this isn't self-promotion, but it's just kind of where my passion is. The attempt that we're going for on Verdon Way is a modern interpretation of historic architecture, like what Ship Carpenter Square became in Lewis. It's my hope that when Verdon Way is completed, people will drive in there 20 years from now and say, this could have been done differently, but they put some historic character to these houses. There will be a mixed bag in there, but that's the goal. So when Ted called me 3 years ago, I had to let him know that it might not be politically sensible for him to appoint me to the Historic Preservation Commission when I was then going to be the guy that some might think was not really preserving the historic nature of Lewis. So I'm pretty passionate about it. I'm pretty aware about it. I've read inside and out the city's regulations for years. I've commented on them, how I think they can be strengthened, how they can be modified. And I hope that in my interpretations, my deep passion for preservation can be tied back to these documents and not just my opinion. I think that will be my biggest challenge, which I've talked to Bill about and I've talked to Barbara about. And so if you need to get the hook ever and drag me off of the microphone, I'm more than willing to be drug off the stage. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. Randy, I don't know if you know the other players that are important part of this commission. Bonnie Osler is our city council person. All the commissions have a city council person. Bonnie, did you want to say anything to anything to Randy?
I just stepped away there for a second because, as you all know, I live right on Savannah Road, and there seems to be some I'm looking out on Savannah Road right now, and there seems to be some major traffic tie-up, I assume, from the storm that just blew through.
Mhm.
Trying to see if I could see it, but I couldn't. But my advice to you is don't go outbound on Savannah Road for a little while.
Okay.
All I can really say is I grew up around old houses. We have lived in successively older houses.
Mhm.
The house we're in now is roughly 1926, 27.
Mhm.
And I just think older houses are part of our heritage and part of what makes us what we are today. And it's important to remember how we got here.
Mhm.
And so that is why I applaud the work of this commission. I think it's very important.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie. Robin, it looks like he's vacated his desk again.
He's going to check the traffic too.
Yeah.
And can any of you see me? All of a sudden,
Yes.
See you.
I can't see any of you. I've got a blank screen that says Google.
Swipe it with your on your pad or whatever. Swipe it. Sometimes the active screen is hidden by the Zoom or Google.
What should I do?
Just.
Do you have
swipe.
a PC or a something that you can manually?
I'm gonna sign back in. I'm gonna go
Yeah,
off.
I think no. Your screen. The screen where you see everybody is behind that Zoom screen. So just click off the Zoom screen. See if that'll work.
Use your mouse cursor.
I have it in my hand.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see you, Phil.
Well,
You
how to
click-
sign in?
No, just go out and click out, in the upper corner where there's that little red dot or something. You can click off that
Okay,
screen, see if that happens.
I'm
If we
completely out.
lose you, just come back in.
Okay, I'm working my way back in.
Okay. All right.
I can hear you all. There's nothing
Okay.
wrong with hearing, but
Okay. Oops. All right. Okay. Robin, I've just been introducing it. Whoops. There he goes again. Henry, would you like to say hello to Randy and make any comments about
Hi, Randy. Welcome aboard.
Is that it?
I know the name.
Yeah. Yeah. Henry was the building official for CART, and then CART and HPC merged to be H Park. And Robin is still away from his desk. And then we have our legal counsel, Brian. Are you there, Brian, somewhere?
I'm here. How are you,
Okay.
Ted? It's nice meeting you, Randy.
Nice to meet you, Brian.
So Brian is the one that gives us good legal counsel to make sure that we don't get ourselves in hot water and end up in court sometime. So he has a very important role and valued to the city. All right, got everybody except Robin's still gone. All right, so I've done all that. We'll do the minutes. Has everyone read the minutes? Anyone have any comments, corrections, additions? Anything to say about the minutes? You're back, Phil. No comments about the minutes? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So move,
Who's that?
George.
George? Thank you, George. And
I'll second.
okay, Joe's gonna second. Okay. George and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Motion approval of minutes has been carried. All right. Then getting to our first applicant, I'm hoping that Mark Redden was able to get in. I noticed there was a note down below that he was not.
I'm here.
Good, thank you, Mark. All right, so this is the presentation possible action on a request by Mark Redden on behalf of Bill and Christine Davis for the renovation conversion of the existing dwelling into a real estate office and dwelling unit above. Major changes include construction of new porches, side and rear additions, additional dormers, and expansion of existing dormers. Property is located at 104 2nd Street, Sussex County Tax Map 335-8, 2020-45.00 PC-/H contributing, and address is 104 Second Street. Okay. This, just bring everybody up to date who may not have been here last time. This application did come before us last month, and we had a lot of constructive conversation about it. And they decided to, based on the input of the H Park commissioners, they decided to withdraw it and go back to the drawing board for another look. And that's what we're looking at today. So, are we okay there?
And I'm back. I can see you all.
Good. Okay. And just to remind everybody, I'm going to call people to make comments, and this is for Randy's information too, in the order that we used to sit, just because I did decide to do that. And I'll always speak last, just so that you all get a chance to talk as much as you want. So Mark, would you like to go ahead and present the new design?
Sure, I sure would. So what in front of you is the redesigned building, which, you know, more respectful to the front. Most of the constructive criticism we got was that we did too much to change the front, change the entry. So most of this was about scaling the design back, pushing more of the work towards the back of the house rather than necessarily engaging with the front streetscape, leaving the park in the front of the house, leaving the original entryway with the glazed entry. Our biggest changes are basically to fit the amount of program we need to fit in there. So our biggest changes from the front of the street are probably the dormers on the sides. There are no dormers on the sides now. However, the access to the attic is through a stair that's not currently legal. There's not enough headroom at that location, so we need to raise the roof in that location just so we can get access to the attic space to create that master suite. And obviously creating just one dormer is lopsided, so to maintain the symmetry, we added a dormer to both sides. We felt that that was the most respectful thing we could do and still be able to actually use the attic for living space. And then the other probably biggest thing we're asking to do now is the side porch. It is an original structure. It is, however, both very narrow and not in the best of shape. The original structure was definitely historic. However, it has been infilled. Right now there are jalousie windows, which are not remotely historic. We would like to replace a lot of those with double hungs, which would be more appropriate for the time period. Again, these double hungs will match the ones in the house with the 4/0 glazing with the, I think we're going to use the Anderson 400 series windows. So we're going to try to maintain transparency, but since we're going to basically replace most of the structure between termite damage and water damage and rot that's gotten in there over the years and never been really addressed, there's not a lot there that we wouldn't have to just basically replace in one way or the other. So as part of this, we also would like to expand the footprint of the side porch by a couple feet. That will give us a little more room to work with so that we can use that side porch as a functional entryway for the commercial space downstairs, and also as a functional sitting room, sunroom, dining room, assemblage on the second floor. And again, we do plan to keep that entire piece as transparent as possible. Again, with historically appropriate glazing, but keep the massing as minimal as we can by keeping it transparent in a historic manner. And then at the top, we do have a small little balcony that's kind of that's our egress from the master bedroom as well. Most of the rest of it is on the back side. We are planning to extend the rear porch addition. It also is badly termite damaged, and the ceiling heights are not really where they should be, and the structure is not really where it should be either by modern code. So we're planning to expand that as well, add a couple offices, a break room in the back on the ground floor, and then add the bedrooms that we need on the back as well, which really is not going to be visible from anywhere except for their own property. We do plan to maintain the brick. The brick actually is in fantastic shape. We have no interest in changing that at all. I don't think it even really needs much in the way of pointing up or anything. I think we can just leave that alone for the most part. But in the spots we are adding new siding, we're planning to use cementitious, hardy plank type materials, lap siding, painted. I think the same basic color that the siding is now on the dormers. The roof is going to maintain the same basic massing, but since we're adding so much on the front anyway, the same basic massing. The back will have a dormer. We do plan to use asphalt shingles on the front where you can see it, and then we may have to use metal on the back side, depending on how the pitch of that dormer works out. But again, that's not visible from anywhere unless you're either Google Earth airplane or standing on the roof of one of the restaurants on their backside. So we don't feel that really impacts the street at all. I believe I've kind of covered most of the stuff I had in my application. I don't know if there were any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns that I can answer.
Great. Thank you, Mark. We're going to go around in order. Before we start to do that, I just want to tell you how much we appreciate the thoroughness of your presentation and the fact that you listened and understood what our charge is as far as the guidelines and in the commission's document. So with that, I'll start with Bill. If you want to start, have any questions or comments?
Thank you very much. Yes, I do want to say that tremendous change from the last time. And of course, the main building now, you can see it stands out. I do have a few questions though. In regards to the roof in the back, which is going to be the master bedroom, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Did you consider bringing that roof down just a little bit below the profile of the original building? Could you do that at all? It's one question. The other is,
just let him. Should we let him?
I'm not quite understanding his question, I guess.
Okay, the question is where you've put the master bedroom in the back, you've added a roof that is equal to the height of the main building. And I'm saying, is there any way you could bring that profile down a little bit lower than the main structure? Did you consider doing that?
Right now, that wall is about 8 foot. We could probably bring it down to 7, if that would help. But the original roof came all the way down to the floor level, and to actually get, you can see how little space there is on the 3rd floor already. So we really kind of need some height in that back wall so we can push the program away from the front street. That way, I don't have to mess with that front dormer or the front roof line very much.
Well, I really appreciate that you left that dormer in the front on the old part. Yeah, it's just that it kind of stands out. I don't know what it would look like once it's built, and I'm looking from.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see what you're saying. You mean the ridge line of that dormer? Is that what you mean?
I'm talking about the back part. Yes,
I can probably bring that down some. Actually, yes, I think
that would help because that would allow the old part of the historic building to stand out a little better if you can do that.
I believe that is something that is definitely possible.
Okay. Some other minor things. I did mention this before about the wrought iron fencing in the front. Are we going to leave that? That doesn't show in your drawing.
Oh, yes, we're intending to leave the wrought iron fence alone.
Okay. And how about railings? Are you going to do railings now that we've taken the
railings are all in the back now, except for the one potentially on the top of the balcony. Again, we're looking at doing probably something with a bit of a pick at the black from the wrought iron, bring it up to the top level.
That's going to be in the front. Are you going to have railings in the front?
Only at that balcony, which would be like a half railing on top of that little mansard. You can see it on the left side. That's the only spot in the front where there's any railing.
Okay. Okay, I see what you're saying.
And so that railing you're going to do in black? Is that what you're saying?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Okay. And then I've got to ask you about the windows on the new addition on the left, up on the 2nd level. Are those windows the same size as the windows in the old historic part of the house, or no? They look larger to me.
They are larger. We're intending to try to give more of a glass feel. We can bring them down some.
It looks like you've got a match on the 1st floor there with the windows down on the 1st floor there, but up on the upper level, they look larger than the other. It would, from a rhythm standpoint, it would be better to bring them down in size a little bit, try to match them with what you got in the old. Let's see, what else do I want to say? I would have liked to have seen a sampling of your siding. You said it's like hardy plank, but is it hardy plank or what is it?
We haven't picked a manufacturer necessarily, but it's going to be it's Hardy Plank or one of the competitors just provides the exact same type of product.
And that's approved. That's an approved material, Barbara.
Well, Hardy, you know, the cementus, the Hardy board is, or you know, competitors is it's pre-approved, but it's the location that would be questioned. You know, whether this is a historic structure and we tend to do natural materials on the front street face of a historic structure. So I'm
Sort of like a cedar plank or something like that.
Somebody's got a mic on that shouldn't have a mic on, and we're getting some background conversation from somebody. I don't know if it's in the city staff or where, but that's.
I'm concerned about the siding also. I wondered if it yeah.
Could you just hold up a second while we finish Bill's conversations? Yeah, Robin, do you want to comment about the fact that, well, Robin's, yeah, he's there. Okay. You know, our guidelines call for wood on the street side of a historic building, natural materials on the street side.
On the contributing portion only.
Well, this is contributing. It's established that the sunroom's contributing, even though they're adding a second floor and they're extending it 2 feet. I think it might still be considered contributing.
And I think I'll follow back up to something that was said some time ago from Councilwoman Osler about when council approved this front-facing wood or natural material. That it was only the front-facing, not the recessed front elevation, if I'm correct in saying that.
Correct. Well, I don't know. This is, I mean, at what point is it a recess, and which, you know, when it's only 6 inches or so? Well, let's come back to that. We'll see what everybody else thinks about that.
Okay, and then that's all I've got, Barbara, for now.
Yeah, and Bill, I just wonder if talking about lowering the ridge line of, I guess it's the addition.
In the back,
Yeah, the back. I mean, at what point would you ever see that? Outside of the elevation drawing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's, you know, I appreciate your concern, but because we do look at that, but the reality of whether, if you didn't see it in elevation, would you see it in person?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just me. It's just when I look at the old edition, it just is, I guess it's inside me to say anything behind that, if you can see it, should be lower profile than what the original structure is. That way it lets the original structure stand out more. That's why I asked that.
Yeah.
I do agree with Bill. Even if it were just lowered 12 inches, I would feel a lot better. Mark said he could lower it some, and I think that's a good idea. It makes the original front elevation defined prominently. Instead of having the front roof, the original roof, competing with the dormer, the dormer becomes secondary when it's down a little bit.
Yeah.
And you think you'll see that from the road, from the street?
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
if it's not visible.
There's no way we could all see it, because you'd have to be up at looking straight on. So you'd have to be up 2 floors to see it the way it's drawn.
Okay, all right. We'll see what everybody else thinks on that. Phil, before you continue, I want to if we stay in order, Michael's next to make any questions or comments. Are you there, Michael?
Yeah, I am. Basically, you know, as everyone knows, we're sort of bound by the city code 19759, and our primary criteria for the review of any contributing structure is the preservation of that structure. And I do want to commend the architect for this submission. We're also limited, I believe, by the city code to elements that include the public view, and in most cases, it is the front elevation, as people have said. But I believe it was also stated that that front elevation is sort of interpreted in terms of, you know, what can be reviewed from the property line of the structure being viewed. And Robin, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that front. In terms of when you're looking at the structure, it's from the actual property line out front from the public view. If you're looking up or onward. Basically, I think that this particular submission has been very, very sensitive to city code and to the Secretary of the Interior's standards. One of the things I was very, very impressed with, the actual submission that occurred to the Department of the Interior, which establishes the contributing structure, specifically mentions the portico out front along with the sunburst transom. And I just think it's wonderful that that's being preserved. It's very, very unique to, I think, 2nd Street. You'd see more of that sort of installation along Powhatan Road, but that pretty much is a defining element, and I'm very, very pleased to see that. I'm also pleased to see that you're using a brick foundation for the reconstruction of the previously attached sunroom, and the removal of those jealousy windows, which are not historically accurate to the time period of the construction of the house, and installing these double hung windows that are going to match. The only question I had on the window front is, what color will the windows be? Will they be white?
They would be white to match what's there now. Or basically, you'll pull out the windows that are there, replace them with windows that are as close as possible. Same sort of,
yeah, and I think as Bill has mentioned, and as Phil has mentioned too, I'm very, very pleased to sort of see that you've pretty much left that front dormer intact. Again, it preserves the integrity of the original structure. The one issue that came up previously is this issue of the use of, the city code does encourage the use of natural materials on the front elevation, and I just question whether it would be possible to use either a cedar lap siding or another more natural material, at least for the front portion of the building. And that's pretty much it. I think it's a very, very sensitive resubmission. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Phil, you're up next. Comments, questions?
I too appreciate the effort that you went to listen to us at our last meeting and come back with this proposal. I think it's a step in the right direction. I'm not going to repeat what the two previous people have said, but I agree with a lot of what they said. On the material on the addition on the left side of the house, I like the idea that the windows are similar, that they're white and all. I wondered if you would consider cedar shakes instead of the siding you're proposing. I can't find my photograph of the house, but I thought there were cedar shingles on the side. I just can't find the
currently there aren't. It's lap siding. There may be, honestly, there could be layers there that we haven't peeled back. So there may be some cedar under that. We haven't exposed anything of that nature yet.
I'm almost back there. There it is. Were there not cedar shingles, weathered?
I don't think.
Yeah, they were. I have the photo of the house, and it was the one-story porch on the left side of the house is the jalousie windows that are changing, and that's a good thing. And what's left of siding is cedar shingles. And I just wondered if you would consider, and I don't know what everybody else thinks about that, but if you would consider the natural wood cedar shingles on that side addition. They're weathered. They look appropriate with the brick.
We don't have a problem with going to cedar shingles or cedar lap. I honestly, we were working with what's visible now and what I mean, cedar shingles would not be inappropriate for the time period.
Well,
great. All right, let's see what everybody else thinks. Anything else, Phil?
What's on the shutters that are on the front of the house? They're not historically correct. I know you're not proposing to change them, but they look skimpy and thin. They historically they would have, if they were working shutters, they would have been the half the width of the window. When you have a pair of windows, the shutters on a house that isn't historic, this is what happens. You have shutters that are not half the width of the window, and that was how you decided the width of a shutter. But just looking at these shutters, I wondered, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but these shutters look thin and inappropriate, and wondered if you consider we're only talking about 6 shutters on the front of the house, making them a little wider so they don't look so thin and fake.
Well, Phil, what happens with the double windows?
That's the problem. You just don't follow the rule of the shutter being half the window. Maybe I'm just asking for something that's, again, I'm asking for something that's just using a sense of design and nothing historic.
Do you think there were shutters on that house originally when it was first constructed, Mark?
No.
Or Phil?
Given the way the windows are placed, I would doubt it, because they would need to be like the shutters have to match the windows, and the triple window at the bottom would be ridiculous. So I do not believe those are necessarily original. We were not planning necessarily to mess with them, but we're not them either.
Could you consider just removing them?
I don't see how that would be a problem necessarily.
Okay. Well, let's see what everybody else thinks about that.
Right. Those are my only comments. The proposed new steps, are they anything like the original over at the main entrance?
They're intended to be a more subservient brick set of steps. What's over there now, that entrance was abandoned a long time ago, and I don't believe those steps are still there.
I see. It's not drawn anyway with steps. And in my photograph of the place I just looked at, I can't see what's there just from where I was standing and took the picture. So those are my only comments. And again, I appreciate your effort of preserving the original front of the house.
Great. Randy, you want to go next?
Oh, I would sit in that seat, whatever. How did I end up rotated?
Well, Larry, you want to go last? Do you want to go last?
No.
Larry used to sit next to me, so that's why I put you in that spot.
Okay. So I looked at the application previously because I think it was the night after the first presentation when there was a mayor and council meeting or somewhere there close to. So I wanted to see whatever was on the agenda. And I do agree that this plan is superior to and more in keeping with the, with the charter of 197-59. When I look at some of the things on here, I'm concerned about scale and materials. And my concerns are maybe a little more than a few other people, and also rhythm. So I'll start with scale first. And I think it goes to what Bill is speaking to. But the dormers, and you will see, because I walk my dog by there twice a day, you will see the buttery side of this building pretty dominantly when you walk onto 2nd Street on either side of the street. And one of my concerns is that the scale of the 2 dormers on the side are much larger than the dormer that's on the front. So I'm not sure that it follows the criteria that says additions will be, the specific language it does talk about in the Historic Preservation Secretary of Interior. It said new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, which granted you are not, because you preserved that front vestibule, or the spatial relationship that characterizes the property. Part of what characterizes this property is, although it's not a 4-square property, it is a design that lends itself to being 4-square, which would have had 4 equal dormers on the top of it. It didn't get built that way. It only had the front dormer. I've never walked around back. So when you put these dormers on that are much larger than that, and I think that Mark can overcome that by possibly bringing that ridge line down, maybe even looking at, can you narrow that, those dormers? And I understand the concern with headroom and clearance, and I'm not trying to be an obstructionist, but I have concern about the scale of that dormer. And then I think a couple of other things that could be done that could really take this from being a good plan or a great plan and make it a superior plan and really honor that existing house, is when I look at the windows and doors on the front facade only of that addition, they don't match the existing house in scale or rhythm. And I understand that the objective is to have a more light-filled room on that 2nd floor addition for the owner to use, and then to have the office. But I tend to think that the windows on the 1st floor, the 2 to the left of the entry door, are not the same size or scale or rhythm of the doors, the windows that have the single with the 2 flanking double hungs on it. And the door is kind of lopsided. And I think you could possibly, Mark, I don't know, reorient that so that your 2 windows on each side and your door was in the middle, and you had your stairs coming up and they weren't tucked into the side of the building, and then change those 4 windows that are above there so that you have more of a rhythm repeating of what's there. I get what you're going for, which is the light in the space, but I'm not sure that that answers the question of, are we preserving the character in the duplication of this addition? And then the last thing, and maybe it's a big ask, but so under the standards, number 3, siding, 3D is natural materials matching or substantially similar. or to completely contrast with the original, right? So that's the option, right? You have either D or F. I get that you've gone for F to substantially be different or complementary of the original. If that, there's no banding on that house anywhere, so I don't know why you would have the bands going around there. But wouldn't it be wonderful if the front of that addition was brick or a nice thick profile artisan siding or something that really spoke to what you're trying to do on that? You know, I mean, brick I get is expensive, but it's a pretty significant location in downtown Lewis, and I would think that the investment would be paid back in spades.
Randy, Randy, where are you looking? Where are you talking about putting brick? Are you talking about the new sunroom, the 2 stories?
Facade of the sunroom.
Okay, 2-story sunroom. But that never had brick.
No, it didn't, but it's an addition that's, you know, and in the regs, what it refers to is, I mean, if you read in our regulations, what it's asking, it didn't have brick. But I'd hate to see a 3/16 inch thick milled hardy plank put on the side of that that brick building, because it would not be complementary.
Yeah, I agree.
It would not be historic in nature at all. So be it a thick profile artisan siding, the banding is not part of the architectural style of the house at all. It just simply, it isn't. So it doesn't meet the criteria where it talks about the standards in our regulations.
I mean, the banding is easy enough to change, and so is the siding material. And Mark seems that he's, you know, he's willing to entertain that.
Yeah,
So the other concern, Mark, is I heard in a question earlier, and I think it would be great if you had like a, you know, powder coated aluminum or some sort of a modern. You don't want to put a rusty old wrought iron rail up on that rooftop deck. And even though it's not, you also don't want to put an endurance rail up there or an Intex square post rail, because it just, I think there's a couple of little things that can be done to tweak that plan and really make it winning. But I don't know if we have the authority to regulate that deeply, but it's a pretty significant property. And there are some others that have been built on 2nd Street recently that do not honor the historic character of downtown Lewis. We don't want to do it on this end of the street, I don't think.
Thank you, Randy. George.
Okay, well, that's a tough act to follow.
Yes. Maybe we'll make Randy go last from now on.
I want to compliment Mark on the redesign. I think they came back with everything that we asked for. The roof line of the dormers does not exceed the original roof line, and because they are on the side, I understand that Bill and Christine are using the upper floor as their residence, so they need as much room up there as they can get. Having said that, you know, it does not, by the rendering, does not exceed the roof line of the original house. I would go along with everything else request that the wood siding be used on the new side addition. Other than that, I think you've got a great design. I feel that it is in keeping with the original structure. A little bit of improvements here and there won't defer from the historic significance of the house. So that's I won't drone on, but that's pretty much how I feel in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you, George. Joe.
Taking a more practical approach, I believe this building has one street number, number 104.
Yes.
I was wondering when there's potential customers coming here for a meeting or something, or sign a deal, which entrance do they know how to go to? Will there be some type of signage on the left-hand side identifying this as a real estate office? And who to approve the signage proposed? I would suggest that if there's a house number going up, it only goes up on the left-hand side, which will be the office number. If it's the right-hand side door is going to be private residence, just leave it off there to urge customers to go to the left-hand side. And some type of signage should be there identifying that as a real estate office. And I do enjoy the redesign of the dormers and getting the utilities, the mechanical ventilation, which can now go on the backside of that ridge line, so you don't see the plastic pipes or vents or anything from 2nd Street. And I have no objection to the siding shown on the proposed addition, because it will look like an addition. It's not going to be, you know, a brick on the left side trying to match the brick on the right side. You're definitely claiming that this is a new addition going on there, so I have no problem with the siding going on. But I think some signage and a house number on the left would be appropriate. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, I jotted down a few things. Again, thanks for the redesign. I think it really worked out well. I've got concerns about the sunroom, the redo on the sunroom. I think adding the 2 feet did not change things, did not take away from the streetscape or the proportions of the structure, 2 feet in width on 2nd Street. And I think the 2-story, doing a 2nd story on that sunroom is also compatible with the existing house. But I think the 1st floor was always a sunroom, and it no longer looks like a sunroom. I think it would, to maintain that sunroom look for the 1st floor, if you could repeat the 2nd floor windows. You've got a double set on the left, and if they could come down and then you could modify the door accordingly, just would have a better feel to it. Also wanted to ask you if you thought the original 1st floor triple window was original to the house. I called the University of Delaware, because they're doing a resurvey, and asked them for any information they had on the structure. And we had a discussion that there was a possibility that this was not the original 1st floor windows, that it was more, it seemed more to replicate a period when everybody was doing sort of a semi-picture window. You know, that was like the big improvement on a structure, to take your front windows and make one of them a semi-picture window. So I didn't know if you had any additional information on that or thoughts on that, Mark?
The windows appear to match the other windows, so if they are not original, then they were subbed out all out at the same time. They are counterweight windows.
Oh, are they? Okay.
So it seems likely that if they're not original, they're darn close. And the masonry opening is pretty consistent. Like I couldn't see any sign that they had enlarged it. So if it wasn't that window setup, it was a very large window, like 4 windows in a row or something they swapped out for a big one later. But I don't. Yeah, it is a weird detail for a house of this time, definitely, but it didn't. It looked like it had to be pretty old, at least.
I wondered if it had been a triple of equal size at one time.
It's a possibility. Again, they were counterweights with chains like the rest of the windows.
Wow.
It's possible that someone swapped all the windows at one point in time, or it was done very quickly within 10 years after the house was built or something.
Okay.
I don't have all the answers on that, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. So anyway, so let's see. So anyway, I made my comment about the sunroom. I thought the first floor needs to still look like a sunroom. And they don't look like, the first and second floor don't look like they're compatible on 2nd Street. And I would hope that you might consider modifying that. It would be nice if you could also add some addition and do the same thing on the side of that first floor so that you matched windows on the 2nd floor. I understand you're trying to capture some wall space in there from a functional standpoint, but the windows that are there, if they could, you know, they're pairs on the 2nd floor, but they're like 2 singles on the 1st floor, or that's how they're drawn. So whether or not you could do 2 pairs, half of the windows that you have on the 2nd floor?
You could do half, and then from that point on, I imagine landscaping would probably, and the buttery, or not buttery, whatever.
Right, the cavern.
Thank you.
Okay.
Would probably block view. That's one of the reasons I didn't do windows down, is I was thinking we were probably already getting behind the buttery or tavern. But we can do, I don't think it would hurt us to do a 2nd pair necessarily.
Okay, so if you could match those, the upstairs for half of the windows would be the front half, and then also match on the 2nd Street the 2nd floor pair closest to the corner. Then you would still have space to do a door there.
I think we were the goal to kind of maintain, because we were trying to maintain a sunroom look as best we could. If we matched the windows, the width was at a weird position where the door wouldn't really fill the width. So we had this wall section. I was kind of worried that might be worse than this. Because the door is a 3-foot door. There's not room for a side light now. And then you have this, like, you know, 2-foot section of blank wall where there's no windows. That was kind of, that was
you want to center the door more?
Don't you think that you could center the door with flanking double hung windows on each side of it, all trimmed out with a beautiful head trim to that, and then windows up above on that front facade that duplicate that same rhythm?
So our thought process behind where the door is and why it's there and why it's kind of downplayed is that there was feedback last time that that the front door needed to stay the front door, at least visually.
Yeah, I don't think what Randy suggested would be inappropriate.
Okay,
You know,
I mean,
I think it's a better 1st and 2nd floor compatible design approach.
Right.
You know, and I think, you know, Randy's idea of, you know, having the 2nd floor windows, which are now 2 pairs, have them as a single pair in the center and then 2 singles. I think I'm understanding you right, Randy. And then 2 single windows on the 1st floor with the door and additional side light window in the center.
Well, I don't think you would have the side light. I mean, Mark can look at it, but I would think you would have a 3-foot door with a 3-foot window above it, and you'd have flanking double hung windows on each side of that door and something similar up above. You'd get nearly the same amount of light, and you would have a little bit more wall showing on the left corner and a little bit of wall showing between the brick building, but it wouldn't be demonstrous to the structure, and it would be more, there'd be a rhythm to it. You know.
Well, wait, Randy.
You know.
Yeah, Randy, I want to try and repeat back what I think you said. You said on the 1st floor of the sunroom, the door would be in the center with a flanking side light on either side?
With double hung windows flanking each side of it, not a side light.
Okay, okay, all right. So
you could duplicate that similar look upstairs, and you could make it wider but still follow the same rhythm. Do you know what? Does that make sense to you, Mark?
I think I understand what you're saying. The dimensions might be a little funky to make that work, but I think I can pull something off. I don't think it's unfeasible.
Okay. Yeah, I think the idea is that this structure, although 1 story originally, always looked like a sunroom. That's what it spoke to. And that we're just trying to, in this addition for this new repurposing of the building, is to make sure it has that similar street look. Yeah.
And also that the entrance is a secondary entrance. It's not competing with the front entrance of the original,
Right.
the original front entrance.
And
So,
I don't think it would.
okay,
You?
I don't think it would either. Even if you, because you don't have all that decoration above the door that the original entrance has. But if you move the door over and put it more in the center and had two side lights, but not as wide as the original front door.
Well, I think, well, Randy was sort of saying he wasn't sure you needed side lights if it was just a nice, healthy sized door. Right, Mark, that's your job.
That's you guys are kind of, Randy's being frustrated architect again, doing my job for me, which is
No, I think, well, you're a quick study. You understand what you're listening to. Okay, I have another question. I'm just curious. Are you required to do an ADA entrance, and has that been incorporated somewhere that I missed?
on the rear side. We're gonna have parking in the rear, and if you look on the plan, you should see a ramp on the back side.
Okay.
Yes.
I must have missed that. All right.
And also, I think the question about signage was really an important question. Where does the sign go, and how do you know it's a real estate office, and how big is the sign? I think that's a really good question.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's great signage out there, wayfinding signage, and you could even do private entrance right near the main front door that goes into the rest of the building. That could be there as well. And I assume you had several notes in your written material about finishes. Some of them seemed like you were still trying to decide. So I don't know if, when you get ready to finalize that, if we could have a record of it, or.
Not a problem. I thought it was mostly finalized. There's a couple of, we hadn't actually picked out like the exact railing yet. I should have said hardy plank, because honestly, it's going to be, the siding is probably going to be hardy. It's just that it's a bad habit, because I don't like ever expecting a specific material when there's other options that might switch in and be indistinguishable. But the windows are going to be Anderson 400s. We're obviously try to keep things as close to original types of materials as possible, but maybe a little better maintenance requirements when we can.
Mark, is it possible to look at a deeper profile? I mean, instead of having to go to a cedar on the front of that building, that you use the artisan hardy, which gives you the same profile as cedar. It wouldn't cost any more. I don't know where Robin's position was on that. He was talking about that earlier, but I mean, if you use the artisan, you get that nice deep profile. It seems like it would look, if it's going to stay in a cementitious product, do you think your client would consider using something that had that deeper profile?
He and I have been chatting while this is going on, and he's definitely okay with, if this gets him approval, he's okay with modifying the siding to be lap, to be shingle. I don't think going to the artisan product, which is a little deeper, it's easier maintenance than the cedar. It's similar looking. I don't think that would be a deal breaker at all.
Okay. All right. Somehow we're going to have to recap here. Okay. So, and get a motion. Anybody else have any questions or comments they want to make before we try and get this to a motion?
Barbara, I got everything except that addition, the new addition on the left. Those windows up above on the second floor Randy was talking about, he's saying basically instead of looking at 4 windows there, you're actually going to have 2. And then you're going to have the windows down below, one on each side of the front, each side of the door.
Well, no, you're still going to have the I think the second floor windows will still be 4 windows on the front, but we're going to try and match up with down below. So where we have 2 single windows we have a single window on the other side of the door on the first floor of the sunroom.
Each side of the door.
We'll have a single window right
Mhm.
above those 2, and then we'll put a pair in the middle. Is that
That's
right?
what I was saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
See that
Yeah.
picture?
Yes. Got it. Yeah, is that right, Mark?
Does that make sense, Mark? Something like that?
Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah. Okay. So what's
That
that?
is
Real quickly,
that is the frustrated
Let me screen grab.
that is the frustrated architect there.
That is. I remember those sketches.
Well, wait a minute. You're saying that instead of 4 windows, you're going to do 3 windows on the top, so they're not all going to be the same size.
I think Randy was looking at the rhythm of that triple window and kind of embracing that as the sunroom windows. Not that exact window, but embracing that kind of rhythm and that kind of pattern.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm buying that one, but because it wouldn't have been in a sunroom. The sunroom windows would have all been the same size, if at all possible. And I think you could still do that. You could take your 2 pairs and do a pair in the center and a center on each side. You've got that kind of space.
Yeah, I think there's a solution here.
Okay.
I kind of agree with you that the triple might be it might not. I said with Randy with the dimensions not quite maybe working out for a triple like that. They may. That's one thing about sketches is that it looks good, and then you start looking at actual windows and see what size they are, and don't always work in the space that you have. So it's one of those.
Okay.
I was just referencing in 9 of the preservation. What it says is the new work will be differentiated from the old and will be compatible with historical materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property, its environment. I'm not suggesting, because what that room was on the side really isn't the language of the building that you're adding something onto. That room's gone. You're trying to maintain the language of the brick building, not the sunroom that was there, is my, in my reading of the regs.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think the sunroom was there, and I think the sunroom is very much characteristic of that style house structure, and we have them in other places in Lewis, and it should replicate, it should still say a sunroom, when it's done, and it's pretty obvious it's new, and it's still respectful and compatible, and it still is identified as being a new structure without you have to be careful about not creating something so that's foreign, So, okay. So, Bill, you were kind of interrupted.
Before you go to a motion, which I think is where you're going now.
Yeah, trying to.
There were a couple of chat comments at the bottom of the screen that you might just want to read into the record and see if anyone has any concerns about them.
Let's see. Mark did make it. Currently,
they're all from Bill Davis, I believe.
Yes. Well, Bill Davis is.
He's the owner of the property.
Right.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Bill. Yeah. Okay. So the first one was where Mark was still trying to connect in, so he did, and then Bill said currently it is a vinyl aluminum with jalousie windows, and I think we knew that was all going away. What we don't know is what's underneath the vinyl, or I don't think we know. And then Bill said yes to something. I'm not sure what. And then Bill said, porch was never brick. We are fine with cedar and taking away the banding. Good, thank you very much. There was a door on the sunroom at one time, since there is currently falling apart steps there to nowhere. So yeah, and I think even in the original survey or some information maybe I got from the university, they did reference it. There was a door at one time on that Second Street side of the sunroom.
It
So
is
we're,
a survey that was part of the submission packet. It shows it.
yeah. Yeah, so I think, I think we're good with all of that. Thank you, Bill. So, okay. So now I think if I attempt to recap this, I think what we're talking about is having Mark, let me know, Mark, if I've got this correct, or unless you want to do it. I was just trying to kind of recap what you're going to modify.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start and then maybe we'll do it together. So you're going to, I guess you're going to review the height of the height of the roof on the back side.
If I can bring the dormers down slightly, I think I can and still maintain the same materials.
Okay, so you're going to lower the dormers, the new dormers.
Yes.
New dormers. Okay. And then you're going to modify the windows and door location on the sunroom, first and second floor facing 2nd Street.
Yes.
Okay, modify windows, door, sunroom. And also repeat the 1st floor windows on the sunroom to match the 2nd floor on the, just in the 2nd Street side bay. You're going to repeat the first 2 bays because they're pairs. The first 2 bays, the pairs of windows on the 2nd floor. Okay, right. Okay. Okay, and all right, and then also the material. You're going to revise the material.
Yes, we'll go with a more natural looking material, either cedar. There are 2 options that were thrown out there.
Yeah, yes, there were. So you can look at them both.
Yep, cedar shake. Definitely get rid of the banding. Cedar shake, or a lap cedar, or possibly the cementatious, which I'm kind of leaning towards at the moment. With the
okay, which is what Randy suggested, the artisan profile.
I think would work. We could theoretically use that throughout potentially then, because it would just match around the whole building, so it'd be different types of material, which I would prefer.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Lasts forever.
Okay. And all right. And then the finishes, I think, basically we approved the 2nd floor sunroom. We approved the 2-foot extension on the width of the sunroom, and removing, are you going to look at removing the shutters altogether? Or is that
I mean, I don't think there's a problem with removing them. They're not really original. We kept them because they were there.
What is everybody in agreement with removing them altogether, or taking a look at removing them?
Just my suggestion is to just remove them and be done with it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's actually a good idea, because you can, if it all of a sudden just looks bare or in need of shutters, then you could come back as a chair and staff if you just felt, and then at that time they would need to be an operable shutter.
Is there any chance that the brick underneath those shutters is?
Barbara, I think if you take them off, they're gonna look bare.
Yeah.
It's gonna look bare
Think?
with all that brick.
Yeah, I don't think that they take away from anything, and I do think that the owner is going to have a problem if they take them off, because those brick are not going to be very pretty behind there.
Okay.
Yeah, if you take off the shutters, you're gonna have to pressure wash the whole building then. Yeah.
Oh, and probably more than that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that might be
I
the.
mean, I think that, you know, you could make them complimentary, Mark. I mean, they're certainly, so on that detail, when the new, not that this is our specific purview, but I just have a question. Have you looked into what the soffits of that house are? Because they were not aluminum when they were built. They have very large overhangs and fascias that were probably covered in the mid to late 70s with aluminum, because that's when all of that was done all over Lewis. And I've walked by there. Have you peeled any of that back, Mark? Do you know what you're
not?
facing
I
there?
would assume that if I had to guess what's under there, it would have been probably some form of cedar or even cypress possibly, but some sort of wood soffit, because I don't think it even was vented originally.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of examples of exposed rafter tails from that era. I mean, my house at 801 Savannah Road, that was what was under the aluminum there. It was a gift because it was all in good shape, but I'm just curious what you might find and if that's part of your work, because you've got all these other soffits and that have to tie into it.
We really weren't planning to. I mean, we're obviously probably gonna have some replacement to do. We're planning to, but we really weren't planning to like expose and restore the original what we find under there. Because you know, half the time the rafter tails are covered up because they're rotted out or you know not in good shape. Sometimes they are, and you're right. That's a gift, but I wasn't going to assume that.
Yeah, you're not required to.
No, I was just curious if
Yeah.
you'd seen what was there, because it becomes part of the fenestration of the house.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so we're talking about new shutters, and they need to be operable shutters with the appropriate hardware. Mark?
Okay.
With shutter stays.
I thought he was going to leave them the way they were.
Okay.
Yeah, just leave them.
I was like, can we just leave them? I mean, they're not hurting anything the way they are. They might. I don't think they're operable now.
They're not. They look like they're glued on. They don't look good. Yeah, but that's, Robin says you can leave them if you want. You don't have to replace them. You would be in, you know, just drive around town.
You could, are you not allowed to replace them in, you know, in like kind, but not have to go to a fully operable shutter? I mean, the shutters
No,
on the house as it is now.
No, our guidelines say that is for shutters and that they should have the historic operable hardware on them. And it does make all the difference in the world. But if you just want to leave them,
once we touch them, we own them, and I think at this point, unless something changes, we'd like to just leave them as they are. You know.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think it's something that down the road you may find you possibly will, the owner will possibly want to do, just because they'll realize what a difference.
Yeah, it'd be nice, but I think at this point, we're trying to. We've been delayed months and months with COVID and everything else, so we're just trying to get moving a little bit.
No, I think we really appreciate your flexibility and working with us on so many different things, and that you know, you're not required to do the shutters.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then, all right. Anybody have anything that I missed or they don't agree with or they want to talk about?
I want to see if the proposed signage will be approved by Robin or just reviewed between you and Robin. So we can see what's going on.
The signage is in our review because this is both commercial and residential.
Yeah.
So it should be done. And I think in fact, Robin, how do you want to proceed with a review of all these changes? Do they come back to us next month? Do we do a chair and staff?
That's the opinion of the commission.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the commission?
Chair and staff, I think this project has been delayed long enough, and the sooner he gets paperwork changed and
also, you know, a letter comes out from the commission approved. I mean, we're about to take a vote, and obviously it would be approved on the condition of the following changes. So that will be noted in the letter to the owners and the architect. And, you know, any deviation off of that would, you know,
Yeah, I think I think that's great, George, and we'll do that. But I think at the same time, the changes need to do a chair and staff review so we can actually visually see them
okay,
as part of that. That could
I'd
be
go with chair and staff rather than making them come back another time.
great. Okay. Is that all right with everybody else, or?
Yes,
Okay with
that's
me.
fine.
Okay, good. All right. George, you seem to have a handle on it. Do you want to make a motion?
No.
No.
I have notes, but somebody else can make this motion because my bullet points are scratch marks.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I could give it a shot, but it'd probably need some corrections.
All right. Well, why don't you give it a shot? I think you're probably in a better place than anybody else.
Because the application concerns a property that is located at 104 2nd Street in Lewis and is a contributing structure and uses previously approved materials and conforms with the rhythm and scale of the historic district. I move that the application be approved with the following changes. And here's where it gets a little tough. Okay. That the dormers, the new dormers will be lowered. The door location on the sunroom and windows will be modified. The windows on the second floor will repeat the windows on the first floor will repeat as they are on the second floor. And a revised material for the siding on the sunroom, which is now the entrance. And that's it. The shutters aren't changing.
And
it's about as clear as mud, probably.
didn't we want to also see clarity on the railings at the upper roof? Wasn't that one of the things that was?
Yes, we can add that because I think that was that still a bit vague, Mark? Your second floor railing?
Yeah, we can definitely put that as part of this, get that approved.
Okay.
Modify the second floor railings?
Yes. That's on the top deck that's viewed from 2nd Street, right?
Yes.
The deck of the top of the addition.
The part about the windows and the door on the sunroom, maybe you just say for now, because we can deal with that at a chair and staff, and a lot of it, some of that's a little fluid, is modified door and window locations per discussion, because what you said wasn't quite right.
I can live with that.
And that way, you know, because Mark's gonna have to play with that a little bit.
Right.
Okay, so modify sunroom addition, first and second floor door and window locations per discussion. Something. Okay.
We just need a second.
But I would like for it to be pretty clear what it's going to, what in everybody's mind that this thing's going to look like, because there's 7 of you and there's going to be 3 of us making a final chair and staff review. And if these don't match up, there's somewhere going to be really upset. So I'm not trying to hold the process up, but I just don't want us 3 at the end of this project to say yay to something that wasn't envisioned by the 7 that's going to approve this motion.
Isn't the key to it that the windows replicate the scale and rhythm of the existing facade of the building? I mean, isn't that, I mean, so you want the windows to line up. You don't want heads that are lower than the other structure, or, you know, you don't want it to all be disproportionate so that it doesn't have the same scale and rhythm. So I don't know.
Right.
Mark's an architect. He understands what that, you know, I mean, I don't know that that's what he was told before, but it seems like if we say to him as a licensed architect, it needs to follow the same scale and rhythm, then I don't know, maybe that's too subjective, but it seems like it.
Okay, I'm just looking at the elevation here. Well, we also changed location of everything. So it's not just scale and rhythm. I don't think.
The doors, yeah.
Yeah, so okay. So
Mark, do you think that you can draw up what the discussion was?
There were honestly, there were 2 or 3 different takes on this. I have notes on all of them because I've been taking notes this whole time, figuring I might need them again. I can definitely draw up something that matches each of them, while they're all of them in the same design is probably beyond my skill set.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let me, basically what Randy's suggesting is, I think, is that the windows in the sunroom are too big. They're larger than the windows in the house.
Yes, that's going to be a consistent point for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think everybody said that.
Oh.
Except for you, Barbara.
I think that maybe you're putting attention.
I didn't think many people even talked about the sunroom, but anyway.
On my notes, Barbara, what it was is basically Randy had the idea of trying to make the windows to be more like what's on the house, and the counterpoint to that was to have the windows be more appropriate to the type of structure we're trying to attach to the house. And that's I said that's a point that, yeah, I can draw one or the other, but they're probably mutually exclusive, those 2 ideas.
Right. Yeah. Well, to me, I think you have to draw it to decide which way works best. I kind of feel that verbally dictating design direction sometimes is hard. You know, you need to see it, but I think the windows wouldn't be too different if they were just than the house if they were just shorter.
Yeah, I think the simplest solution is more the idea that you had talked about, centering the door, adjusting, liking the windows either side,
right?
Keeping the spacing kind of like how a sunroom would be spaced. Then Randy had the sketch he put out there. It's a little bit different. I can do that with the clients.
Yeah, I mean, I if
I'm with that.
You could try.
Take out the sunlight.
What are you saying? What did you say, Bill?
That the sunlight to the left of the door there, take that out. Move the window over so you have a window on each side of the door. Center the door, and upstairs size those windows so that they're in rhythm with the rest of the addition. And that's what I thought where we were.
Okay, and it doesn't bother you that those windows are larger than the house?
Yeah, bring them down, size them down a little bit. They're too big.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so they're oversized.
I wonder, Mark did a great job of listening to us last time. Do you think it's asking too much to have him do the revisions so we can see them and then approve them? I mean, everything we talked about, I agree with. It's hard to translate words into drawing, and trust Mark to come back with all that we talked about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, I wonder if Brian, are you okay with we do a semi-chair and staff? Can Brian or can Mark redo this, and then Robin send it out to everybody? I think it's going to be pretty simple, cut and dry. I don't see as.
Yeah, I do too.
But again, if you're going to have the full commission review it, it needs to be done in a meeting. And I'm not speaking on behalf of.
Oh, okay.
In my opinion, I think we have a grasp on it. I'm fine with doing the changes and then have it go to chair and staff.
Yep.
Okay.
We've already spent almost 2 hours on this one application.
If I may, I agree with Commissioner Thomason that you do a conditional approval of the application. You guys come back, maybe it's a chair and staff comes back and just make sure that everything that was said to be done based on plans and the conditional approval is actually drawn up and is ready to go.
Okay.
But
Okay, that's fine.
That doesn't exist as far as I know. So-
Okay, good. Okay, no, that's good. That's good. All right, so George, back to your motion. Where are you, George?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to refer to the door and window changes in the sunroom as to be revised and submitted for chair and staff?
Right. So in addition to everything else I said, so that the relocation of the door and windows on the addition be submitted to chair and staff for final approval.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Who seconded it?
Bill.
I second it.
Who seconded it?
Bill.
Bill? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Bill.
I second.
Okay, all right. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Commissioner,
Yes, and we're gonna go check with everybody. Okay, we're gonna canvass the whole commission. Just briefly, make a statement that can go on record, why you're supporting this motion. And so just so we have it on record, possibly referencing our guidelines if possible. Okay, starting with Bill.
Yes. Great improvement from the first submission. The part that really benefits preservation here is the fact that we're concentrating on the main addition of the building, and we're conforming to the regulations and policies set forth to keep it in rhythm and scale for historic purposes. And so therefore I approve for that reason.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I approve based on the fact it demonstrates a sensitivity to the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation of historic properties.
Right. Phil?
Based on Mark's response to our first review, the result of his response, and based on all of the comments that were made today, they were thorough, and I think it will produce a project on 2nd Street that belongs on 2nd Street, and so I approve.
Thank you. Randy?
Yes, although this has been a long process for this property and for the applicant, I believe that the better benefit of the historic district of Lewis will be met by the time spent on this, and it's in accordance with our jurisdiction and procedures under 19757, and that it meets the standard with the conditions as outlined by George's motion to comply with 197-59 of the historic district criteria and standards. So I support this
motion. Thank you. George?
Yeah, I feel that the changes are relatively subtle. They kept the original design of the house. I think the side entrance and the addition will flow with the street and actually the property the way it is. I think it's going to be an improvement to the 2nd Street corridor. So I support the application.
Thank you. Joe?
I'll take the easy way out and say I'll agree with all the previous comments.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, and I'm voting in favor of this with the modifications that we all discussed. The new design follows the Historic District's criteria and standards, 197-59, and the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. And look forward to the modifications as a chair and staff review, Mark, when you are ready to have us do that.
I am very ready. You'll see some very shortly. Don't worry.
Okay, well, we're ready to receive it. So, and thank you for your patience, and the owners of the property for their patience. And you know, I think it's really an important building in an important spot on 2nd Street. So, I think we're all doing our best.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next.
Barbara,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to excuse myself. If there's someone that could take notes on the second application, I'm very sorry, but I have to go. I have to sign off.
Okay, you have a conflict, or?
I do.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, George.
Thank you. I'll give you a call to compare notes.
Okay.
Okay,
Very
thank
good.
you.
Okay,
Thank
Barb, just FYI, I have to jump off at 4. I've got another call.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, thank you. Okay, next, switch my pile of papers here. All right, our next applicant is, whoops, where is my agenda? Trying to find my agenda here.
So it's a presentation and possible action on a request by Brenda Jones on behalf of David and Diane Krulac for the demolition of the rear unit to a 2-story dwelling for the construction of a new dwelling unit. Property is located at 44 Rhodeline Avenue, Sussex County Tax Map 335, Map 8.12, Parcel 2, and it's Unit 2, and it's RH or R4H in contributing.
Thank you very much for jumping in there. Okay, Brenda.
Yes.
There was a question that we had about the historic, if this is a contributing structure or not, and would require it's going to require us to have for a demolition. It's going to require us to have a public hearing, and I know Robin and Brian, our legal counsel, talked about that earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, isn't that cute? Robin, you or Brian want to address this now?
Give me 1 second.
Okay. Are you here too, Robin?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you allow Diane in, the owner?
I don't do.
Or did someone unmute Diane Krulac? The owner is also in on.
Okay.
And maybe Janelle can do that.
Brenda, all I see is you, David, and Tom West.
Oh, David Krulac?
Okay, so it'd be David.
Okay, it's under David's
Okay,
name,
gotcha.
yes. If you allow them in, that's Diane, his wife.
Janelle, could you do that, please? Okay.
They're good to go.
Okay.
So section 19758 I talks about demolition and the removal of a structure. And if the structure is deemed to be a contributing structure, no demolition or removal of the structure from the premises may take place until after a public hearing. And so the question that we have is whether this is a contributing structure or a non-contributing structure, because if it's a non-contributing structure, you can review the application without a full hearing. My understanding, based on review of the materials that were submitted, that there was a fire at one point and a portion of the structure, you know, on the lot was eventually rebuilt. I don't know if there's anything else I'm missing, but we would like kind of some more information about all that stuff.
Okay, you're ready for me?
Yes.
Okay, so as you can see in the application, I supplied a sandboard map from 1922, and I have an arrow pointing to the residence. And if you kind of look at that compared to 1945, and then also the today's current survey, there's some similarities, but not all. So it's hard to say whether or not this is truly, you know, the existing footprint of what was there at some point. The 1922 survey looks like it has some ones, which would mean a one-story or single story, and it has some dotted lines, which would mean porches. It also has an outbuilding on that property. That is not there. And when you look at the existing structure, what we're talking about removing, there is little to no foundation under this property. So what that's telling me is it probably was at some point a porch, maybe a back kitchen, something like that. What was there prior to the fire? Again, I don't know. I did try to research the tax records and assessment worksheets, but they don't offer a lot of information either. In the back area, well, even in the front house, the siding goes all the way down to the ground, to the grass, to the dirt. So it's hard to tell really what's under there. But the back structure, you can actually lift the siding, kind of pull the siding away and stick your hand, not that I really like to do this, but you can almost pull just gobs of dirt out where the band board, where the floor joists are sitting and the band board along, it's just sitting in the dirt, in the ground, and it's just deteriorated. Also around that whole area, there's where they're doing the termite treatment is there, and the little round holes where they put the termite, whatever, you know, to kill termites, to keep them away.
Poison.
Yes, they're like every 3 to 4 feet around this entire structure back there. So it's evident that there has been termite infestation, and they're trying to, you know, keep that from eating the house until it just falls into the ground. So what I was told is that there was a fire back in 2004. The structure that caught on fire was not much of a structure to begin with. And apparently this, what is there now, was just built right back on the same burnt timbers, you know, because they just didn't have a lot of money at that time to modify this house correctly or bring it back to its, to any kind of decent structure, I guess. And then the Krulacs, Diane, you might want to take on from here, purchased the house in, Diane. Did she not get in?
Yeah, should be. Yeah, the speakers, the microphone is on.
It is on?
Yep.
Let me text her real quick. Let me see. Are you in? Okay, well, so anyway, when they purchased the house, they had it separated into 2 units, a front unit and a back unit. So it is under a condo. Donna Cardano owns the front unit. She actually came before the HPC board maybe 4 years ago to have an addition put on the side of her unit, like a sunroom addition.
Yes.
And I spoke to her. She was going to sign in, but she had to get off by 3 o'clock for another appointment that she had. But she wanted to get in and sign in and just show that, because actually I've spoken with Robin about this, that the condo, to make sure that everybody in the condo association knows what's going on. And she is in approval of having this done. One of the other things that concerns us about this property, as well as, you know, it's not built on any kind of foundation, and there is mold. I mean, as soon as you walk in the back, you know, door, you can smell the mold coming from the ground. There is no firewall. There's no fire separation wall between these two units. So actually in the front unit, you can actually see some of the damage of the fire from when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems the best scenario here is to remove the rear unit and rebuild. And you can see the, she didn't get back to me. So her husband's in the hospital, so she may have had to go to him.
Okay.
Okay, so what we did was propose to demo from the main house, the first unit, put in a proper firewall, a new foundation, and build a new structure that we feel would fit in with the streetscape of Rhodoline. And the neighbors on Rhodoline seem to be very excited about that, because I guess this has been distressful with the house and its condition next door.
Okay.
Am I in?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay, good. Sorry, I'm here.
Were you able to hear anything that we
Yes.
just?
Yeah, I can hear everything. My microphone wasn't working, so I switched.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess we're per legal counsel, we're trying to decide whether we can actually view this without having a public hearing first, since it requested for a demolition of the structure. And
now, I also did try to see if there were any fire records to find out, you know, what the condition of the fire was when it happened. I wasn't able to find anything out from that.
Oh.
You know, to see if it was you know, totally burned down or what the condition was prior to, I don't know. And until we would maybe be able to start taking off some siding and all of that, I don't think that we would be able to determine that anyway.
Robin,
so whether or not it's the original structure or not, it's kind of a gamble. We don't feel that it is, though.
Robin, do you want to comment on that?
He just left.
Oh.
I saw him walk out of the room.
Oh.
How about Brian? How about from an attorney perspective?
Well, the need for a public hearing is all going to be based on whether it's contributing versus non-contributing. And from what I'm hearing, it does not sound like there's a whole lot of information to confirm it one way or the other.
Correct.
And that's problematic, I think, for review for today's purposes. And so that's my 2 cents at this point. I to hear what the commissioners say, but I think that, you know, based on the uncertainty and Ms. Jones, you did a great job of tracking this down and trying to piece this information together for us. But I think my recommendation to the commissioners, and it's their decision beyond that, is that it should be set for a public hearing.
Okay. Robin, are you back yet? Robin?
No, I don't see him. No.
So I will tell you that at the structure, you know, usually if you walk into an old house, you can tell that, you know, there's some retaining factor or something that you see in the structure. I mean, obviously from the outside, it's just vinyl siding, vinyl windows, you know, things that were just pieced together to put back there. And nothing is exposed inside that shows anything of significance.
Robin's back, Barbara.
Robin, Brian gave us legal counsel on whether or not we should go ahead with a demolition hearing for this structure on Rhodoline. And Brenda and the owner have done a great job of trying to research whatever they could. It still sounds like it would be more of an opinion than enough factual data to determine whether it's contributing or not. Do you have thoughts on whether we should proceed with a demolition hearing?
I try not to put any more thoughts in. I guess it's up to the commission to decide that.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go along with Brian as a chair. I think it would be a safer thing to do. It's always kind of surprising when we do have a hearing, what kind of information may surface, sometimes none, but sometimes when the word's out there, people will come forward and shed some light on a structure. So the other commissioners, anybody else want to make a comment? No comments? Okay.
I agree too with Brian as well. When you look at 1922 and you look at 1945, to me, there's not a great change there. And I think it's worth our time to go back and look at this from a demo standpoint, whether we should do that or not.
Okay. All right. Do I need a vote on that? Do I need a vote?
Madam Chair, I would vote on that.
Okay. May I have a motion from one of the commissioners to set a public hearing for the demolition request for 404 Rhodoline Avenue, and that will be scheduled for next month at the beginning of our regular H-Park meeting.
Before we go any further, then the next meeting is September 1st.
Okay.
So that's around the Labor Day holiday, and I know in the past we've had.
Okay. Is that the Tuesday right after?
It's the Tuesday before.
The Tuesday before, a week before.
It's the 4th is the Labor Day, right, or the 7th?
That would be a week. A week later would be.
But is the 4th the holiday or the 7th the holiday?
The 7th is the holiday.
So the 7th is holiday, so it'll be a week before that.
Okay.
So the 1st will be fine. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's the 1st okay then, don't you? Does anybody have a
2
conflict?
p.m. Is it 2 p.m.?
I think so. 2 p.m. Robin?
That's up to this commission.
Okay.
So how do you do that for the hearing portion of it? Do you still do that like a half an hour prior to the meeting, or what do you do now that it's Zoom?
Yes, we would still have to open up a public hearing, and then at the conclusion of the public hearing, close the public hearing and open up a meeting. So the meeting can be noticed as immediately following the public hearing.
Yeah.
So if we want to do the public hearing at 2 o'clock,
Mhm.
then immediately following the public hearing, to close the public hearing, that's when you would start your normal meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I still need a motion to set a public hearing for the demolition request for 404 Rhodoline Avenue. Somebody, please.
And
I
if you
could
could
try,
please,
Barbara.
and if you could please just emphasize that because of it's been deemed to be contributing,
Okay.
that a public hearing will be required by
Okay.
code.
All right.
Want me to give it a try, Barbara?
Yes, please.
Madam Chair, I move that we have a demolition hearing for the property on 404 Rhodoline Avenue, because the property is in the historic district. It is a contributing building. And the condition of it can't be totally determined at this point. The maps that we previously reviewed show 1922, 1945, with the properties looking pretty much on the same footprint. So therefore, I think we should have a demolition hearing prior to making a decision on this application. to be sure that we don't destroy a historic structure in our district.
Thank you. Do you have a second, please?
Second.
Who second?
Michael, I second that motion.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
And
Now,
Chair, if I may, would
Mhm.
you all just go around and just explain your reasonings?
okay, sure. All right, starting with Bill, who pretty much did that in his motion, but so,
Yes, my main reason was it's in the historic district. It's a contributing structure, and therefore I think we should do a demolition hearing prior to making a decision
okay, Michael?
I
on this application.
totally agree with Bill's rationale.
Okay, Phil?
I agree with Bill also.
Okay, Randy?
For the reasons stated, I believe it's in the best interest of the applicant to have a public hearing, although I agree also with the applicant's designer that it's very difficult to tell if this property is contributing or not contributing considering the fire, and that probably there's not much value to the structure for the safety of the applicant. I believe it's in the best interest to have a public hearing so we can move forward with a further decision.
Okay, George, have you already left? I think George left. Joe?
I agree with everybody, and I think some public input on this, because it is historic area, should be secured. Thank you.
And I too agree that we should do a demolition hearing because it's inconclusive and the property is deemed contributing. So.
What is the date going to be?
It's when we have our next H-Park meeting, which is the first Tuesday, which is September 1st at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
And so now, Robin, do we want to make any helpful comments to Brenda, or Brenda, do you want any comments, or do you?
Sure, we can listen to what you
I don't know.
We've already been here, what, an hour, 2 hours now.
Attorney about that, but I don't think that's probably the best way to go.
Madam Chair, I would wait for the public hearing first.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, Ms. Jones.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Brenda, and I guess it's Diane. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you've been here a long time and you've been very patient, and but you will be number 1 on the agenda next month.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Are we out now?
Yes, we're over and out.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Okay, going back to the agenda, we've got some unfinished business, which update on the Phase 6 resurvey. I still have no information from the State Historic Office. I have been in touch with them, and so has the University of Delaware. I don't even know why this has been delayed so much longer this year than it has in any other year, but it is. I will continue to try. And next we have the presentation by Tom West and Janelle Cornwell regarding local regulations pertaining to wireless towers and 5G systems. So I guess you guys are on. Are you still awake?
We're here.
Oh, good. Oh, but you're just doing a name. We don't get to see you, huh?
So Tom came to you guys several months ago, giving you guys a heads up about
yes,
the wireless facilities and the 5G coming through. In your packet, you would have found a copy of that draft ordinance and a copy of the draft design standards. You know, the reason the city's looking at it is because, you know, federal legislation's been adopted to allow this to come in. To look at that. So Tom, do you want to go over some stuff?
Sure, I can do that.
Also in your packet was a link to the website that had the materials on it. It also had a flow chart. Janelle, is it possible to share that on the screen, or is it we just refer to it?
No, I can share it.
Okay, that'd be good, because I think it, and Barbara, you'll remember it. Remember when we created H Park through ordinance, we came up with a flow chart that helped define things. So that was kind of an inspiration for this.
We don't have that in our packet?
There.
I thought we did have it in our packet.
You might have, yeah. I know there was at least a link to it in your packet.
Maybe I looked at the link. I've seen that before. I think it was, I must have looked up the link then. Yeah, it's not in the packet.
So I'll just try and breeze through this as much as I can and then take questions. The reason we're coming before H Park now is that the Planning Commission's looked at this for the last few months and created the ordinance amendment and design guidelines that Janelle briefly mentioned. They have asked us to come to H Park and run it by H Park, this whole process with you, to see if there's any recommendations. The reason being is the next step would go to City Council, since it's a zoning amendment. So the Planning Commission wants to make sure that H Park has looked at it. If there's any recommendations that H Park would want to submit to City Council when it holds the public hearing, they would find that useful. So that's why we were asked to come and talk to you today about this and follow up on our earlier discussion. So the reason this is really what's driving it, Janelle mentioned that legislation's changed, but it's also technology's changed. So our current ordinance does regulate cell towers, which is the big towers at the bottom left in the first column. So we already have provisions on the book that regulates the big towers. But it's really not that specific. And since that, which is probably late 80s or so, when those were put in there, the technology's changed. And what we're looking at now, what's really driving this is the top image, which is just a schematic. So basically the small cell or 5G technology, it's designed to be primarily on utility poles or light towers and mostly in the street right of way. They're also the technology, it's supposed to be higher volume, but they need to be spaced a lot closer together than what we know of the big monopoles or towers. So the technology's changed, and when I talked to you the first time around, I mentioned a little bit about the legislation. The federal and state legislation is what I would say they're promoting this technology, and one of the things that they're doing is streamlining local review. They're not prohibiting it, but they're streamlining it. And the biggest thing, or one thing just to give a cursory overview, any of these 5G systems that are in the state right of way are basically exempt from local review, except for some very discrete provisions. So that's one of the things that the zoning reviews and things have to apply, can have some provisions, but it's pretty limited what can be done when it's in a state highway right of way or on a state structure. So when we did this review, we based it around some of those criteria. The other criteria that we based it around is most of the utility poles and lights in the city are operated by the Board of Public Works. And they have people that are familiar with wireless technology and wired technology. So the solution for the city is to work with the Board of Public Works on a lot of this, since the co-location or mounting of these antennas is largely going to be these newer ones on their utility structures. They would be involved anyhow. They have to permit it. So what we basically have is a process. The first column A is really just saying, is this a wireless facility? And the zoning ordinance, some of them are exempt, like ham radios, things like that, satellite dishes on homes, those types of things. But if it's anything else, then it goes through this review process, and it runs it, if it is reviewed by or not exempt from the zoning ordinance, it's going to go into administrative review or conditional review. So column B is administrative review, meaning the Board of Public Works is doing it. And what they're reviewing are the boxes underneath of it. So a small cell facility or 5G that's on an existing or a new wireless support structure in any state right of way or city or state-owned structures. The second thing is it's installation of small cell facility that complies with the defined design standards, which is in the document Janelle mentioned that we'll talk about in a little bit, on existing structures or new structures. And then the third one is modifications of equipment. So they would go through, and there's an application form that will either go to the city or BPW or jointly, depending on the application. They would go through the Board of Public Works for review before they get a building permit. So in all these cases, the city will be involved, at least from a building permit standpoint, and review. Column C is basically structures that are, or these wireless facilities that are on a structure that's not owned by BPW, or it's in one of the zoning districts, the commercial or non-residential districts, or it's a modification of one of those systems. So basically that's still an administrative review. It would be handled by the building officials, not BPW in that case. They would review it, come in through the application, and then go for a building permit. Conditional use review are the more complicated ones. That also includes our existing ones. So if a big tower comes in like below, that's already a conditional use review. So that would be the same. But in addition to that, it's some of these installations that are on a new structure or facility that's over 50 feet, installation of on a building or structure in the zoning districts that are basically residential. So any residential zone, and I know we have some mixed zones, we could talk about that. Anything that's in a residential area would be a conditional use review, or anything that's not in A, B, or C before that. Just as an aside, a conditional use review requires a public hearing, and then it needs to go to city council just to consider whether or not that wireless facility should be approved as a use. So those are in the areas that they're bigger facilities, or they're in areas that are discouraged. So that's an overview of the process. There's also a lot in the design standards, which were in your packet. And if you've had a chance to look at that, and I'll let Janelle comment on that. If it's in the historic district, there are certain provisions for it, and it actually mentions some areas in the historic district where they're not permitted, at least the small cell facilities.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Sure.
So I took a look at the design standards as to what they're going to look like, and I know there was concern about what they would look like in the historic district.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was kind of looked at and determined, what do we already have? I know there was some concern about on like 2nd Street, so I just straight out prohibited them to be on 2nd Street. So there's less issues.
Okay, all right, let me just make sure I heard that correctly. So there will be none of these objects on 2nd Street.
As proposed, correct.
Okay.
Because what we had heard from the last time was there was concern about that. There's standards for all of them. However, in the historic district, they have to make sure, they're being consistent with the ornate street stuff. If they're gonna, what I found, I took pictures, and there's pictures in the standards, is if they're gonna use one of the existing light poles or poles, it needs to look like that. If they're gonna place a new pole, it needs to look and function and match what is already existing. So, the more ornate stop sign pole, the more ornate black light pole, and then mix the small cell facilities into that so it looks like it belongs in the historic district. And that's if they're going to put something new, a new pole, that they have to be matched the existing kind of the black street signs, the black light posts that are in the historic district. Doesn't prohibit them from using the existing overhead electric poles that they can do. But if they're going to put something smaller or use one of the smaller light poles, they need to make sure they're matching that.
Have they done a design for what this object will look like when it's attached to an existing pole or a new pole?
So what we have required in the design standards is that it needs to look like it fits and is not wider than the pole itself. So it needs to look like it fits on this pole, like it's just an extension of the pole. So picture like the light pole and just a couple feet taller with that antenna. Again, it has to be wrapped in the same material, the same color to look like it matches. So it more or less looks like an extension of the existing pole.
But you're not, have they done a design submission that can be pre-approved?
When they submit, we would review it from the planning side to make sure it's matching all of our requirements per the design standards.
Okay. And
so if it's going to fall into those, then the planning office, along with Robin, there'll be some back and forth with BPW, and that application that Tom was talking about, there will be some working at multiple signatures will go on that permit to make sure it complies with the design standards before it's approved.
When they add another pole, or do you have any requirements on the distance from a pre-existing pole?
Yes, we have requirements that they have to be 50 feet from an existing pole, street light.
Okay. And have you seen any of these objects that in other historic towns as an example? Could an example be included?
I have not yet. I was just using examples that we have for around here because we have such unique history, and so I wanted to focus on that. You know, I've seen them do a lot, like I'm showing here, just a utility pole. They'll match, probably put it on top sometimes. On the light pole, they'll put it near the top. And you might see like down in the right-hand corner, there might be a little cabinet, but they'll match that cabinet to make sure it's matched with whatever's going on.
So would there be a cabinet of that size in the historic district somewhere?
So there would be a limit on the size of the cabinet for anything. And that, again, we're talking about anything that's going to be in the right-of-way. So the cabinet would be, I want to make sure I get the number right. I want to say it's 28 cubic square feet.
Oh, so that's actually in the document somewhere?
That is in the design standards. All the design standards talk about the height, the clear height, the placement of the cabinet needs to be out of, you know, the pathway of the bicycles and pedestrians and the vehicles. You know, that if you're going to have a new cabinet, it needs to be covered and matching the items in the area.
Do you have an idea of the distance, the maximum distance that they can go between these units, these items?
From what I've heard, it's about 300 to 400 feet. So there'll be need for more of them. However, again, the intent is to get them to use existing structures that are already there, and then just make them look like they're an extension of that existing structure.
I know Joe had sent some pictures that we viewed. I think they're in Rehoboth. Is that right, Joe?
Yeah, that's on the boardwalk. I think they're like 20-foot towers where their beach volleyball is. So they incorporated it on a beach volleyball tower. It's got to be 20, 25 feet high. But there was a monstrous base with exposed conduit. Wasn't very pretty, but it's on the boardwalk. So
nothing here, any conduits, any wires, everything has to be covered, and it has to match the covering and the material, the color of the structure it's going to be placed upon. So you should not see any exposed wires. If you do, they need to match, they have to be covered to match the wood color of the pole, the black color of the pole, the whatever color of the pole, it is to match that requirement. And that is also citywide as well. So you don't get that exposed items. We also have that we have a limit of the height for them as well. So we've taken that into consideration.
Okay. Do you want me to ask the commissioners if they have questions, or you have more to tell us?
Nope, that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
I would just add one thing that when we looked at this, we looked at a lot of examples, and we worked with surrounding communities, and we did look at historic towns of how they approach this process. I mentioned earlier that we're working in an arena where the zoning, if we do have design standards, they need to be spelled out ahead of time. And we tried to create a process that we could do that meets the needs. We can't ask for a design application ahead of time because we're working with 4 or 5 different companies, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, that do this. And it's usually contractors that work for them.
Right.
So you don't see the process where they say there's one size fits all. You're setting up the parameters. What we did is we created the zoning ordinance, which expands the number of uses that are permitted beyond what we're currently doing to address things that right now we have nothing on the books for. So this is a start. The design guidelines go far and above any of the design standards that we have on the books right now. I think what we're seeing is this is a work in progress, even in the towns we looked at, Annapolis and others, that the technology is changing rapidly. The deployment of it's changing. You know, there's not really a manual for it yet. We work with BPW a lot because it's a lot of technology and it's being mounted on their poles, so that needs to be involved. So what I would say is we've created a process to match the need as best we can. We also created the process knowing the design guidelines aren't part of the zoning ordinance because we're anticipating that they're going to need to be refined. And if they were part of the zoning ordinance, you'd have to have public hearings and a lot of processes to go through. So the idea was deal with things in the zoning ordinance that we're expanding to meet a lot of the needs. But the design guidelines, which really need to be set out there to address this from a legal standpoint, do not need to be in the zoning ordinance. And we do anticipate refining those. They still should be at a public meeting, but that's the process we have that we're working with. We think it's a lot better than what we currently have, which is pretty limited. And it's based on a lot of research of how other communities are tackling this. But it's, I just wanted to mention that because I think Janelle and I would both say there are things that we're still there's maybe questions about, but we don't know if there's answers because it's such a changing framework.
Okay. All right. Well, that's understandable. It's technology changes all the time. Even after you created some really tight design framework for it, it would probably change in 6 months. So I'll just go around and see if there's questions or comments or whatever. Bill, you want to start us?
Briefers did a good job. I'm just curious, you know, towns like Newcastle, Odessa, those places, if they're moving out like we are. And I'm kind of a picture paints 1,000 words kind of guy, so I would like to see these products before they actually got put on the poles. Of course, everybody else in the town probably will before. But, you know, I'm glad that it's not going on 2nd Street, but that's just a selfish thing on my standpoint, from my standpoint. But I think with all new technology, there's some growing pains that go along with it. And we just, I think you guys, Janelle and Crew, you're on it. So, but like to see the product itself. I think that would really help. That would take away some thoughts that I have.
Yeah, do you think that's possible, Tom, that you could include some visual examples of what's been done in other historic towns?
Yeah, I think we could. It's not guaranteeing that's what Verizon
right.
But
they could be used as examples and compatible with or similar to.
I think it makes sense to know what the examples are, and it's probably something others will ask for. So I think we can gather them and have them available. I don't think we can, at that same time, I don't think, going back to Bill's point, that we could say, this is what you need to submit to us.
No, I wouldn't want to do that, but I think it's like specifications on construction in a building.
Sure.
You know, you establish establish the specification and then sometimes offer similar to or equal to, you know, that kind of thing. And that visually, I go along with Bill. I think visually it will be easier for people to understand than a verbal description.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my thought. Michael, you have any comments or thoughts?
I just no, I appreciate this too, and I realize that this document's going to be living and evolving as things progress and technology progresses. I just had two small possible edits, if you guys are interested. On page 5, under the section that's titled Historic District, there's reference that says the area consists of buildings over 100 years old. I'm just wondering whether it might be better just to include the actual language from the city code that says built prior to December 31st, 1940. And on page 6, where the section talks about removal and then reference to repair, holes shall be patched and painted. I'm wondering whether it would be possible just to insert the word primed and painted. Because I'm noticing about town that some of the poles are starting to lose their finish, and it might be, just to include the priming process as well. But other than that, I think it's fine.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Let's see, Phil, you want any comments?
Yeah, actually, one of the churches I worked on several years ago, restoring it historically. The church was built in 1870 and is right on the village green in a historic district. They put a cell tower in the spire of that church. The church was rewired. The electrical system was given. They rewired the electrical system in the church, and they also, because the spire was covered in slate, and they couldn't transmit through the slate, they shingled the spire. But the company was working with the church. The town was working with the church. Today, you can't tell that there's a cell tower in the spire of this church. That's only one example of where I was involved in not in a direct way, but I was involved in that church and what it received. Another thing, the cell tower company, I lived on 5 acres on a hillside. The cell tower company came to me and wanted to know if they could put one on right in the middle of my view. And of course I said no, but they were ready to pay me and lease the piece of my 5 acres. So that's the experience I've had with cell towers. And these were all in Westchester County, New York.
Thank you, Phil. Randy, any thoughts?
Randy, you're muted.
You're muted. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
I hear you. I'm getting there.
No.
Take a second. You can't just make that thing on mute like that. I understand that it's in a historic district that, 2nd Street is just a small portion of it. I guess my question is, what purview does our commission truly have over this process? Because it doesn't, it doesn't seem like we have much other than to comment on this document. Is that the objective here, just for us to add any additional feedback to this document particularly? Because
Yeah, this item is not covered in our regulations. That's my take on it, right, Robin? And so therefore, this is we're being included in this process.
More of an FYI then, it's so that we know.
No, it's also for our input and comments, which is what the purpose of this meeting. We had one other meeting where Tom gave us a heads up. And so, you know, I think the comments that were already made are very, hopefully will be valuable and can be incorporated.
I love the idea of finding areas within historic structures to hide these type of things. You know, I just think of, you know, the Methodist Church, St. Peter's Church, the Presbyterian Church, and their, you know, but I don't think that this 5G technology is like what Phil's talking about, a moneymaker for people to consider mounting these devices. It's not the way that it's set up. It's really the public domain, and they're looking to put them in the public domain on government-owned or regulated structures, more so than, that's my understanding of how 5G is really, truly being deployed.
I don't know.
So we're going to be in a challenge, is that what my thought? If they want to put something on the top of a pole, what can we say?
Well, I don't know, Tom. What can we say?
I'm going back to there's a couple things. If it's just a small cell, which Randy's saying, if it's a much larger one, chances are that would be on a certain separate property. It would be a site plan review.
Right.
And you guys would be involved in the bigger ones. But if it's a small cell, I think unless it's in the historic district, let me see. Janelle, do you know if it's in the historic district, then it's a conditional use review because it needs to come back before, it's not an administrative review. It needs a conditional use permit. So it needs to go to a hearing, and then council would I think advise H Park to provide feedback on that process. So where it stands, that's the one way you would have input into it.
Yeah, and that's for the ones that are on a residentially zoned piece of property.
Gotcha.
Okay.
But we also did include regulations if you're going to put it on a building, how to address it being on a building.
Yeah, it's anything that's a residentially zoned property, but also all of the zones that are -H, which means in the historic district, like R4H, they're ones that would be a conditional use review for it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. George, I think, is left. Joe, any comments?
I have a couple of comments on page 5 on the historic district. It's might be worth a mention where it says there should be no small cell wireless facilities on 2nd Street. You may want to add both residential and commercial areas. Just basically then cover all bases, just to be sure that somebody only thought it was the commercial section, not the residential section. Just to comment on that. The other thing is there's a lot of restrictions about placements around existing lights and poles and possibly even trees. One thing I've run into in commercial shopping centers where you have to make street changes, any type of pole facility, if it's in front of a residential area, try to locate it on the property line. Don't put it in front of Tom or Harry's house. Put it right between them so nobody can complain then. Just try to locate it on the property line in the residential area. Keep everybody happy.
Okay, great. All right. What else do you want from us, Tom?
Like I said, we'll be meeting with the Planning Commission and reporting back to them with any feedback that we've gotten from providers and your group. You're also, again, there's going to be a public hearing that council will schedule. They'll probably schedule it at their September meeting, so it's October, November timeframe when after the hearing, they would act on it. So if anything comes up in between now and then, the record would be open and council would be looking for any and all feedback they can get that's helpful. So it could still evolve as it moves forward from the Planning Commission to council. I think the H Park will be involved in it. I think it's really worthwhile to follow the process. If it changes to any recommendations you don't give us today, you follow up with later on or ask us to come back.
Okay.
To clarify, but I do think you'll be involved in the process, and I think your feedback's valuable.
Yeah, I think the visuals on this are really, really important, you know, for Lewis, the historic district specifically, but just in general. You know, we've already had experiences where things are done out of scale with Lewis.
Sure.
So we want to avoid that. So the comments that you heard today, will you be looking to incorporate those or make some modifications to your documents, and will we get an update on this document?
Janelle, what I think we definitely, they're good points. I guess we need to talk about how to incorporate them in.
Okay.
Yes. And then anything revised just will be posted on the website.
Oh, okay. All right. And so will you let us know when you have a revision or revised posting?
We will do our best to let you know.
I know. Okay, but we should, is it then our responsibility to periodically check the website?
Yeah, I would definitely check.
What website
in
are we
like
checking?
2 weeks. The city's website. So if you got a copy of the agenda electronically, there was
Okay.
a link to that page.
Okay. All right. Okay, very good. All right. Let's see.
Yeah, I would expect changes in the next couple of, not next week, maybe the week after.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Any final questions or comments from anybody? Okay. Bonnie, you weren't here when we went around. Did you have any comments you wanted to make?
I actually just got back on, so I don't know, because I didn't really hear it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, this was the, Tom, the presentation on the small cell wireless 5G.
Yes.
And all that. Okay. All right. Well, anyway.
I heard his presentation at Planning Commission.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's it then.
Thanks for your time. We appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation from both of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, can I ask one quick question before you go away?
Yeah.
We have a, and this, if you guys covered this, I apologize, but do we have a possible go live time period for 5G?
You mean from the provider standpoint or when the city's ready?
But I'm sorry?
When we expect applications from the providers?
Yeah, as to when we may all enjoy the benefits of 5G.
Yeah.
Amen.
We've heard, we talked to Darren Gordon about that a little bit, and they haven't heard much. I think there was an extension already in one of the Lewis Beach, they're talking about in Lewis Beach parking lot, but only because of the volume there. But we have heard from Planning Commission members it's on Route 1, extending out of Rehoboth. Darren doesn't think there's going to be a huge demand in Lewis right away, but the Planning Commission, I could say, is anxious to bring this to closure, to expand the regulations we have on the books. And as part of the ordinance, they've asked us to put the pending ordinance provision in there so that when it goes to council in September or whenever, and as soon as it's advertised for public hearing, it basically, the provisions any new applications could come under that.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Okay. So next is the, I just stuck in a quick comment, and I'm not going to talk about this very long because we've been here a long time. E2 under new business was to review the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, NAPC forum, which just completed, just finished on Sunday. It was outstanding. I don't know how many of you had an opportunity to participate, observe actually, not really participate, but take advantage of this. I hope several of you had. Everybody will be notified when they finish packaging this, record all the recordings and put them all together. We'll all have access to it for 30 days. And I really encourage everyone to take advantage of that and review again, or view any that you missed. This event occurs only every 2 years. It's a national organization of all historic commissions, and we actually join. And you have to be a CLG. Lewis is a CLG in order to join this. And it's just a wonderful opportunity to learn what others are doing and what they have similar, or sometimes it's same challenges, sometimes it's different challenges, sometimes it's bigger challenges. I mean, and I felt after this was over that some of these cities and communities are just doing so much more than we are. Not that I'm championing doing more because it seems like we already do a lot, but it just shows you that our scope is pretty narrow by comparison on the national level. And I just think everything I heard from everyone just was so sensitive, and it evolves like everything else in life. It's constantly evolving. And they were addressing things that planning has looked at, and doing it in a preservation sensitive way. So I think that's really all I'm going to comment for now. But I hope that next month, if we have a light enough load on our calendar, we'll have a chance to talk about some of these items and what we might learn and consider applying in some fashion to our regulations and to the H-Part guidelines. Anybody want to make any comments about it?
Yes, when the reruns are available, I would really like to take part in reviewing some of those. I had trouble getting online, and part of it is me not being that computer literate, but also I had an access address to go to, and when I couldn't get online, I finally sent a question to the people who people who organize this, and they sent me back, said, oh, we changed the access number, but I didn't know that. So I spent a good deal of time trying to get online, but I did review a few of the presentations.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and they were good, and they were really good.
Yeah, they were, and yeah, I struggled with a couple of times trying to get on connected too, but I realized that I really didn't need any of those codes, because I walked you through the one day, Phil, and you just,
yes, you
clicked at the different times you clicked on right before it was ready, and you got right in. Chair and staff, Robin, you want to walk us through those?
Well, we'll go fast since we've been here about 3 hours. So there was 5 during July. Again, it's just a presentation of what was reviewed. There was, looks like 4 of them that were approved and 1 was denied. Basically, mostly minor stuff again, fences and roofing materials, things like that.
Right. Great. Anyone have any questions on the chair and staffs? Okay. All right, we have a date for our next meeting, September 1st, 2 o'clock, Zoom again, and it will start with the demolition requests that we reviewed today. If there are no other comments, would someone make a motion to adjourn?
September 1st at 2 o'clock?
Yes.
Thank you.
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second.
I'm second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much for your patience and your time and your contributions. It was great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Aye.
Goodbye.